Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Jim Carrey Project. This is the project where we are going through all of Jim Carrey's movies through in chronological order. I am your host, Brian Kondrach, and with me at a distance today is,
Carrie, Grant.
yeah, and today we actually have a very special episode. Instead of doing a movie for Jim Carrey, we are going to kind of discuss his novel. If you can see that, it's Jim Carrey, and it's kind of hard to see because of the light, but it's Memoirs and Misinformation. So it's Jim Carrey and I don't know if it's Vachon or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Uh, but it was released this year, 2020. It was published, yeah, 2020, sometime earlier this year, March, April, May, somewhere in there. But anyway, I read it. Carrie listened to it on tape or when she was traveling, and now let's kind of talk about it. So, I guess first and foremost, what did you think?
Well, you already know what I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, it's kind of an unfair advantage because we
Yeah,
talked
I
about it a
texted him
little
when I was
earlier.
finishing. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't want to be that mean, but it's going to be hard for me because I do love Jim Carrey, and I feel like for the most part, when we watch his things, we're positive about it, and we enjoy.
yeah.
And I just this book was not for me at
It's,
all. And I said if I hadn't been driving 15 hours to Colorado and back, well, I listened to it both
you
ways, but
you
15 hours,
would not have read it.
I would not, I couldn't have finished it.
I
But
don't.
it was
Yeah,
it was a mess. It was a mess.
yeah,
I
and
just
it's so funny that you say that too because full disclosure, we've talked about this before for anyone listening or watching. Like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. But we've already talked about this a little bit just in a video chat right after we both read it. So our reactions are a little. I don't feel like they're going to be as visceral, but it's so funny that you're so still like against it when I very much into it. Like this is the one product or like we agree on most of the movies. This
yeah.
is the one product where we're both just like opposite ends of the spectrum of like how we feel about it. So
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. Like what is it that really do you remember like that you don't like about it? What is it
Okay.
that just like drove you crazy, just didn't sit right with you?
Okay. So the, I don't even know where to begin, but
Yeah.
um, so my first thought, and I think the first thing I said to you was, I
Mhm.
think I got the point that he made at the very, very end, which I guess
Mhm.
we're gonna spoil it anyway.
Spoilers.
But
Spoiler
there's really
warning.
no spoiler because it's all nonsense anyway. So I
Yeah.
don't even think you can spoil this book, but maybe we'll save somebody from this book.
Yeah, maybe we'll get
Sorry.
someone to not read it when they're like, oh yeah, maybe all seven of our viewers.
Okay. So the end, I got like I think the point he was trying to make was that um
No.
this life doesn't matter anyway. Nobody's anybody anyway.
Mhm.
Just I don't know. It was kind of just like he like had peace at the end, and I think
Yeah,
that's where it was leading to. And I mean, I think that was supposed to be the lesson, although it really only touched on that at the very end. I guess maybe everything before that was just like how crappy everything was, or how like
mhm.
he was missing the point in a lot of
Yeah,
things. Um, okay, so that's my thing is like there's better ways to do it than the way he did it. Like
yeah.
if that's the lesson you want to give, there's a lot of better stories I think you could do.
Mhm.
Second is so and he said like some of it's true, some of it's not. And I think when that's about all I knew going into it. And so I think while you're reading it, you're trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And I've even
Yeah,
say like, well, you just you don't know. And some you don't. Or what I think maybe there was things that happened and he just changed it a bit, or
yeah. So
things to
so
people or
so
changed
things in
the
real life
situation.
that he was talking about have like
Yeah.
possibly actually happened. It was like, well,
Yeah.
who
So I
was it?
think there's some truth to the stories
Hmm.
underneath, but it's not exactly how it happened or whatever. But then there's things that you know weren't true because they talked a lot about aliens and
Yeah,
how they're invading Earth, and so you know that's not true.
yeah.
And so I think for me, I really he lost me the last chapter. I looked it up. Chapter 13 through 16 is
Hmm.
the fires, the aliens, the
Yeah, when
kidnapping,
everything
the
hits the fan.
craziness that is the last 3 or 4 chapters.
Yeah, it's
Is
when everything hits the fan and things just start going left and right, and Nicolas Cage is there, and all the other celebrities, and just everything is basically crumbling.
dragged on
Society
for
is,
yeah, it dragged
yeah,
on for so long. But I guess So just take that away. That's a whole different, to me,
It's
it's
like
a different
another book.
story.
Yeah.
But before that, I'm always trying to guess like what's real, what's not real, figuring things out. And I guess what I felt like he was doing was sort of pranking me. Like
Hmm.
he's playing a joke on us. And it's only, to me, it's only funny to him. Like
Yeah.
I felt like he made a fool out of me for reading it. And he thinks it's funny. That's what I
Yeah.
think, honestly.
I
And
mean, he
it's,
doesn't even know who you are. He doesn't even know if you're real or exist.
I take it
Which is,
personally. I feel very strongly that
that's so funny.
that he pranked me in a
Yeah.
not very nice way. And I don't know. Like
Do you,
I don't like being fooled, I guess is what it
yeah. So
is. And I felt
do you
like he
feel
was
like
trying
you're
to fool us the whole time. And I
do you
just
feel like do you feel like he like violated your trust, or was it that it was just he made you or the reader the butt of a joke that you didn't really even know was existing, right?
that's
So
exactly how I feel.
yeah, which I think is funny that you bring that up. It's not necessarily, I didn't really necessarily feel it, but it definitely gives you the like idea that it's a very Kaufman-esque kind of book or like situation where he's writing this true story about Jim Carrey, which who is to say who Jim Carrey is anymore? Like we only know him truthfully as all of his characters and as an actor, and there are people in life that know him probably more than that, but uh, when he gets down to it, his philosophical ideas, I think, make you believe that he is also of the mindset that we don't know who we are. So it's like writing this book, making you feel that way, making it feel as if you're the butt of a joke, like really dives into the Andy Kaufman like profile that he created for so long just for that movie, and just like how he relates to that. So it's like it's almost as if he's taking everything that we knew and expect of him, and he is subverting it. He is turning it on its head. And maybe it was on purpose, maybe it wasn't, but it's like that's why I feel like I kind of like it, because it's like, oh, it's going to be a memoir about Jim Carrey. I'll finally get to know all the stuff I want to know about his real life that I haven't already learned or didn't know. And then it was just like, oh wait, what is this bullshit? Aliens and Nicolas Cage and like people getting blasted and disintegrated and weird digital creations of Rodney Dangerfield and all sorts of stuff. It's like,
So you
yeah,
enjoyed, do you feel like I guess maybe the difference is you feel like you figured out the joke early on and
yeah,
you were in on it, and that
yeah,
you were like, oh, I see what he's doing there. And you know I, I mean,
yeah.
I
But
figured it out too. I just kept hoping for something more real, I guess.
yeah, but that's the thing with Hollywood, especially a character, an actor like Jim Carrey, who has been such absurdly out there characters. Like, what's to say his reality is versus like what ours is? This is going to get real philosophical, and we'll never know the answers to any of this. And but like, but at least we're talking about it. I mean, isn't that the point too, as an artist, to just kind of create art and get people to talk about it?
Dang it.
Yeah, I mean, think about what the end of the story is. I mean, him hanging out with Rodney Dangerfield in this make believe world where he's got to reconnect with his best friend. Like that's as real as if, even though it's imagined. I mean, it's real. And then what's to say that us talking about it at the end of life, like we're carrying on the stories of humanity at the end by talking about it now? Like
Yes.
it is subversive, but it's
Yes.
like is
Yeah.
was that the point?
You're
I
totally
don't know.
right.
I don't know. But your my opinions on this are no more valid than your opinions on this. And if I'm right, if it's a subversive thing, where it's like I could be the completely wrong one, and it was just written as a bunch of gibberish that just was like, you know what, these people are going to look into it because people try and find meaning in meaningless things. So let's give them something that's utterly meaningless, a book that makes no sense.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess if I look at it those ways, I lighten up a bit on it.
Yeah.
Um, and he has talked about like, he's not even Jim Carrey anymore.
Mm,
He's this guy who, yes, his name is Jim Carrey, but like, who is Jim Carrey? It's
yeah.
is what you think of as Jim Carrey is really a character he's made anyway. It's,
Hmm.
it's what he shows to us.
Yeah, it's a public persona that's put forth.
So if he's in that mindset and he's like trying to prove that point to us of like there's nothing real anyway,
Yeah.
it's all just a dream, or it's all just what we make of it, or whatever it is, then I can take the sinister part out of it that I feel like I've put into I feel like he's put into it. So then I can lighten up a bit. But
Yeah.
I mean, I still do feel like, and maybe you're the audience that he's
Mm.
talking to that gets it, and like the rest of us, me, is
Yeah.
just, we're the stupid ones who just who wants reality to be reality, and it's
Yeah.
not, you
Yeah,
know.
if you wanted to read a book about reality, go read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin or something like
Right.
that. Don't read Jim Carrey's weird Memoirs and Misinformation, because I mean, even the titles, it's like you don't know. Memoirs and Misinformation. You don't know before you even open the book. You don't know what is going to be real and what's going to be just a big fat lie, or a big like fake out kind of thing.
I wonder if he'll ever come forward and be like, this is why I did it, or this
Mm,
is, this is the point I was trying to, or, whatever it was. Because I
yeah.
mean, it's not an accident in what he did.
No.
It's very purposeful, and combining and telling people there's some real, there's some not, and then using what I really find odd, and you almost never hear about this, is like using real people's names,
Yeah.
obviously not real situations. And I mean, I am sure he talked to everybody and said, hey, well, this is, what, I'm using your name. And I mean, poor Gwyneth Paltrow, I
Yeah.
mean, like,
It's funny.
she's,
It's funny that you say her, but go ahead, finish your voice. I
well,
just,
I mean, early on, like, 'cause she's in it a couple times, but the
yeah.
first time they're at the Guru, what's his name?
Yeah.
This town,
I
Guru,
can't, I didn't even know how to pronounce that guy.
Natchez Gushu.
Yeah, whatever his name was.
And they're doing the thing, and Nicholas, and so the names are crazy there, like
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer is like going off with Nicolas Cage, and they're going, but Gwyneth
Yeah.
Paltrow's there, and she talks about killing the pig and really enjoying killing a pig,
Yeah.
or like dissecting a pig in school, but like whatever, and the blood, and like,
Yeah, she just couldn't stop like stabbing the eyeballs or something like that. It was like
yeah. So
real
like,
demented kind of feeling to it.
yeah, so like, did he call Gwyneth and say, hey, this is the passage that,
Yeah.
you know,
What's it going to be like? Well, I think I like this is another thing that's it's so funny that she's the one you brought up, because I was actually thinking like of all the people that are listed in there, she's the one that I thought of as soon as you're like, oh, who's the celebrity that he would use? I mean, Tom Hanks like is at the very end, I think, and you're like him
he's
and
an
Rita
older
Hayworth, but
guy.
he seems like he's just he's enjoying whatever is happening, and that seems like what something Tom Hanks would actually try
Yeah.
and do. But like with Gwyneth Paltrow, like she's got they even make a comment to it about her being in charge of Goop, her weird little
Uh-huh. Her on.
pseudoscience Netflix healthcare products and stuff.
Right.
And it's like it makes you realize or wonder like, is she really that kind of like demented going down there? And it's like, I mean, technically she's not a true scientist, so if she gets there and stabs a fetal pig multiple times, she's following the truth of herself. But
Right.
like, I loved when later on she knew all of this like combat and like how to kill people that was based just on that whole thing with the fetal pig being murdered multiple times or
Right.
whatever. So
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, lots of times you're like, you write a book and it's based on real events. You change the names of the real people and put it,
yeah,
put it in like the real situation. But
yeah,
this is the opposite. It's like real people, but fake situations.
in
Probably
totally absurd
for the most part.
situations. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really funny to me talking about real people put into really absurd situations, and the fact that he has Charlie Kaufman as one of his like good friends, his manager, his agent, whatever. I mean, Charlie Kaufman is one of the guys that I think got him started in Hollywood with, I think it was Ace Ventura was a Kaufman. If it wasn't Ace Ventura, there was at least another major movie that we did. I'd have to look that up in all
The name's
the
so I couldn't have.
in all of our discussions we've had of the Jim Carrey project, I don't even remember which ones were Kaufman movies, but I'm pretty sure it was Ace Ventura 2, and maybe it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have been the Grinch, but it seems like it could have easily been something right around the Grinch, but I don't know which one it was. Maybe Me, Myself, and Irene. No, that was a Farrelly Brothers. Never mind. So I don't know. It's just funny that he's in it, and he played such a large role in his real life too. So that's a real person in absurd situations.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, he threw out a whole lot of names. I mean, the biggest character I think he talked about and referenced was Nicolas Cage, which
Hmm.
I kind of did a quick Google like as I was reading it, like
Are
if
they
they
actually friends in real
really
life?
friends, and they are, and it did say they had a falling out at some point, but now I think they kind
They're
of
back to friends.
talk again now because I think
Yeah.
he told Nicolas Cage about the book, and Nicolas was like, "Great, that's
Oh,
fine."
perfect. Yeah.
So I don't know what the falling out was about. And then we did watch. I mean, they must have became friends in that movie.
Getting Peggy
Peggy
Sue
Sue
got
got
married.
married. Is what they
Yeah.
were in together, and they've. I don't think they've been in anything since then.
No, I don't think so. They might have collaborated on something, but not actually worked on a film together.
Right.
It's real funny. The I've been watching Community, Dan Harmon's show Community. There's like 6 seasons. Uh, and the last season, there was an entire episode where one of the characters, Abed, who's kind of the kid that's on the spectrum, is really into films, and like he knows that the show is a show, but everyone else thinks he's just being kind of weird. There's an entire episode where he's taking a class about Nicolas Cage films. And like the theater is like, okay, I only limit you to 5 Nicolas Cage films at a time. Don't binge, like don't marathon anything. But Abed does, and he goes bonkers, and the whole thing is that like Nicolas Cage is neither good nor bad. He's just like out there,
Yeah.
and so it's reading this book and remembering
Which is
that is
the
just
way he comes across. I mean,
yeah,
he doesn't come across as a bad guy.
yeah,
He just is out there. Like
yeah.
he's the one who talks about the aliens in the beginning
Hmm.
attacking, and he's the
He's
one who
foreseen it.
changed the world. And then that's what really happened. And then at the end,
Yeah.
so
So did you like that when that kind of thing happened where he's I because when I thought when he was talking about all the weird alien shit, I was like, what is this baloney? I don't understand what this is about. But then later on when actually it was like, oh, the aliens are here and they are blasting us, and he's immune, but then then he gets killed almost immediately after.
yeah, I don't know.
Like
I mean, I think when I enjoyed like when he told the story the first time because I
yeah,
could kind of picture it. They're like at this beach house in Malibu,
yeah.
and Gwyneth is there, and Kelsey Grammer, and Sean Penn, and it went on. The names went on and on.
Everyone,
So
yeah.
yeah, and so I thought that part was funny, kind of like
Hmm.
the how they were interacting with each other, and you know, and
Hmm.
how Nicholas is had this crazy story, and Kelsey hated it, and
Yeah.
that he was making it up, but everybody else was supportive and like, yeah, purge and say it and everything. So I thought that part was funny. I mean, so and we talked about this, like, so right before the last three chapters, when his premonition of the aliens
Was
supposedly comes true, we never know.
yeah.
Right before that was the time when he decides to do the kids movie.
Yeah, the Hungry Hungry Hippos movie.
Yeah, coming off of and we haven't watched the movie that he got in not trouble for, but he had a bad reaction, which was "I love you."
I Love You, Philip Morris.
Yeah,
That is like
it did say
the
that.
next one. That's like two. We're
Only
two
watched
away or 2 or 3 away from that one.
I haven't seen it,
No, we
but
haven't.
it basically like that kind of hurt his career, is what the book was saying,
Hmm.
and so they wanted him to do something family friendly, and they were pushing him to do that, and then the whole Mao thing was like,
Yeah, that's him going like in a direction that this could make or break your career even more so than the thing that you did.
let's come
And it's
back to
like,
that in a minute. But like, so he
yeah,
did this Hungry Hippo, okay,
yeah,
and then you talked about he was with Rodney Dangerfield, and it felt so real, and he had all the
hmm
sensors on him, and it felt like he was really with his friend Roger Dayton,
Rodney
Dangerfield,
Dangerfield.
in it. And so they were letting him talk and just like interact with him. And then, at the end, they kind of, and it felt so real to him. And he said it felt more real than like being out in the real world or whatever. So then when the alien thing happened, both of you and I mentioned that we thought maybe he was
Was it
back.
in another movie, or like was it the same software that he was still just in, kind of thing?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I kept thinking they're going to tell us in a minute here he's going to come out of it or whatever, and it never happens.
Yeah.
But maybe that's still what he wanted us. Maybe that is the case, what he was thinking about.
Here's a real kind of question for you. If you're in an environment like that, and they warn him at one point not to eat his fingers because he gets in the software and something happens and he looks at his fingers and they look like Vienna sausages or something like that, and they warn him, don't eat your fingers. But then later on in the book, he has a dream where he's on the boat and he has a dream, and he ends up eating his fingers anyway. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that if he's in this weird virtual reality and he believes it enough, could that now be the actual reality that he's living in, and that the boat is like, if it's more real than anything he's ever lived in, is the boat and him dying, is him dying at the boat, in the boat. Here's, I'm having a hard time getting all this out. Is him dying in the boat, him in the simulation dying because he's been in there for too dang long, and like, if he died in the simulation and it was real enough, would he have also died in real life? So
would he actually bite his finger off?
Yeah, would you know if you're hallucinating? Look at these little tiny sausages. They look so good.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, it totally is like a hallucination in that respect. So, I mean, I think that's what he wants us to wonder. Hopefully, people are like, they're not taking it completely literally, but like that's part of what it could be.
Yeah.
So,
Have we talked about Georgie at all? Does she
no.
even like stay in your mind? Like once you get to the end of the movie, like into the book, like do you
There's so much crazy at the end, you almost forget about her. But she was in it a long time. And she was
anything besides the last 3 or 4 chapters just gets kind of like washed away
which is
because it's
sad
so
because
bonkers.
you should remember all of it. That's what I had a hard time with, because it's very segmented in like what he's talking about, and so you can't it doesn't flow together necessarily, and so then it is hard to remember.
Yeah. I mean, even us talking about it, we don't have nearly as much the visceral reaction as to Georgie as we do to any of the other characters or any of the other events in this book. Although she was kind of manipulative and kind of a not good person.
I mean, do you think so? Like for her, so it's so funny because he's like, he just broke up with Renee Zellweger. She was the love of my life, which he did date, and he loved her. So and then I was like, well, who's after that? And so like, did you Google like, who do you think Georgie was?
No, who do you think it was? Is it?
My guess maybe was Jenny McCarthy, because she was she's like a TV celebrity, but she probably wasn't very big. She's not very big,
But she was in the late 90s, early 2000s, whatever.
And they were together for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So that was the closest that I sort of came up to.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was what's the girl's name from Dumb and Dumber? I didn't think it was her. He actually wasn't with
Lauren
her.
Holly.
Yeah, Lauren Holly. I didn't think. Yeah. I don't know, and maybe it's a compilation.
It's a complete mix of them. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, because then that begs the question: is the girl Helena or whatever her name is the one that started becoming in on a threesomes, or like just the other sexual girl? Like, is that his girlfriend that ended up overdosing on painkillers or whatever it was?
Yeah, because
like, I didn't even tie those two together at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that part, was weird too. He acted like Georgie was manipulative and bringing the girl into the threesome, but then he was the one still seeing her.
Yeah,
breaking. He acted like he didn't want to, but he did, and
he
like
was breaking
the
rules.
I was like, I don't know if I like him right now.
Yeah, he's a little seedy.
But
he's
so
it's so crazy. I was just Googling Jim Carrey is dating Ginger Gonzaga right now. But I don't remember who he was dating beforehand, but I remember
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know who Georgie really was, but
Yeah,
that's
I
yeah.
don't
I
know.
mean, she was kind of just. I mean, you're right. Like
Yeah,
she was a little bit manipulative, and like I thought the story when she was with Tarantino and she had
yeah,
the face work done and like it went bad, and that I thought
yeah.
that was a really funny story, and I'm
It's
like,
very much.
I kind of hope that one's real, whoever that is,
Yeah,
because that one made me laugh. Um,
it's very much like the Fun with Dick and Jane episode when we were watching that. It's like
yeah,
we've seen this before in a movie, I think. And
no,
their face is
that
all just jacked up.
yeah, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to the Mao thing, I thought
Hmm.
was interesting too, and I don't know if he was really preparing for any kind of role. I mean, he obviously maybe has lost and gained weight a little bit, and he does
Hmm.
talk about it a bit, but he was writing about how, and I think it was more depression than anything because he was
Yeah.
like, I would stay in the house and I'd order pizza and I had a certain pizza and I had a pizza box like on my property. They just stuck it in the box, like,
Yeah.
and he would run out and get it like naked or whatever and then, eat it or
Oh, and
whatever.
then like all of the ice cream and all the like just junk food that he would eat when he was trying to gain weight and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Mao thing was,
That was so weird. I mean, it's such a strange concept to be like, okay, so he's gonna have his dying breath, and then it's gonna fill Jim Carrey, the actor, but also the character in the movie is gonna be Jim Carrey as well. And it's
yeah.
like there were just so many freaking layers related to that, and then just like having to go through all of the mindset to get into the character of Mao that like that this is how actors lose themselves. It's just like that
Well,
kind of thing.
maybe that's sort of that. Maybe Mao was sort of what he kind of went through with Kaufman in a way,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
he was
Who
pulling
knows?
from Kaufman and but make it into.
A real thing.
Well,
It's
I don't
so
know.
weird. It's so hard. Like we've talked about this already for like 20ish minutes, and it's already like my head
We haven't.
hurts. My head hurts, and we still haven't like
Well, and I'm
talked
sure
about
like
anything.
people haven't read the book. They're like, "What the hell? Like this
What is
is
going on here?
weird." And but
He
it is
is
weird.
he is a New York. He made New York Times bestseller list because I mean, you and I both bought it like the week it came out, basically. So it's like
I thought you
there's obviously a strong response to it, and you and I are both very different responses to it. And even
yeah.
now, it's just like I'm personally getting a little frustrated. Like I don't even know what to say anymore. I don't even know like where to go about this book. It's
So, but you said you liked it. So all these
yeah,
things that we're talking about and that you're getting frustrated,
yeah.
are you changing your mind? Or are you
No,
still
I still like it. I still think that like in the end, the book kind of did what I think he was trying to do with it, and that's me putting my spin on his emotions and his reasons to write, which I will never know. But it got people talking about it. It got people talking about him, and it like had a visceral response. It created a visceral response in me, just like his art and his theater and stuff. So I don't know. I
I
still
think
like it.
I think that's right, and that was what he wanted to
Yeah.
do. So yes,
So what if we're gonna rate it? What would you give this of a 1 to 10 scale? Oh, my foot's going
I mean,
down.
I gosh. So like when I take into consideration what you did, like if
Hmm.
if that was his goal, and if he wanted to do something very different, I think his writing is actually really beautiful. He uses
Yeah,
his vocabulary is amazing. The
yeah,
way he describes things is really great. I mean, he's a good writer. Um, and that part was enjoyable. So,
yeah.
I don't,
Well, you mentioned how good of a writer he was, and it's like I've never heard of Dana Vachon, whatever it's pronounced. Um, but like it's so funny to me if you're just looking at the cover. It's like can't really see it. Jim Carrey and then Dana of Action. So like I think showing according to some of the pictures and stuff, it seemed like Jim Carrey probably just spouted things out. And then Dana was sitting there just trying to
oh,
like keep up and like figure it out, and then would have to go back and edit it and be like, "Oh, what is that?"
yeah, like what was her contribution? We don't
No,
know.
I
So,
think it's a guy, isn't it?
oh, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
Like
don't
both
know.
or
His,
Dana
yeah, he's a guy. It's a
or
guy. Dana.
Dana. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this book to me is like a 3,
Mm-hmm.
but it, if I knew what his intentions were, and maybe, didn't have, maybe I did, if I had different expectations, it could be higher, but
Yeah.
it was too segmented to me. I like a story. I like it to make sense from the beginning to the end. Even like, he starts off like depressed and crying in bed, and he's
Yeah.
watching Pompeii, and he's like upset about it. And it does come back. I kept thinking they ain't never going to come back to that, but it does come back to it. But it comes back to it in like chapter 11.
Yeah.
So, you know, that doesn't, and then there's other stories. Like if you're going to I don't know.
There's so many of those
I
little
feel like they
documentaries
tied
that
it
he was,
together
yeah.
well. Yeah.
All the documentaries that he was just getting so, you get so ingrained in them when he's thinking about them and talking about them, that you lose track of like what the story actually was, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you're gonna bookend something, like bookend it, put it at the
Yeah.
beginning and the end, like wrap it
Yeah.
up. If you're gonna, sorry, it just, I don't know. It just didn't. The flow for me was really
Yeah.
difficult. Like I said, if I
So,
hadn't just been stuck in the car, and a lot of the time I was driving, so I had no other choice. I couldn't even look at my phone. I could
oh
only
man.
listen to something. So
For you, did you have headphones on, or
yeah,
did you make your family listen to
no,
it
God, no,
too?
no.
So
Everybody had their
that's,
headphones on
oh my god.
separately in the car. Kids are
Oh, that's
watching their
funny.
shows. I listen to Jim Carrey. My husband
Oh
doing work and stuff. So yeah,
oh
yeah.
my god.
But if I had no other choice, like even at some points I was like,
Yeah.
it's so
Oh.
bad. Would I rather drive in silence for 3 hours
Not.
or so?
Oh, that's funny.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean,
So you
I
give it a
mean,
3.
yeah. What about you?
I'll give it a 7, so we could get a nice even 10. Your 3 plus my 7. I enjoyed it. We talked about that already at the beginning of the podcast. That it feels subversive, and it feels like he's very much like, letting us, not necessarily letting us in on a joke, but it's like it's you don't know what's true. You don't know what's true in life. You don't know what's true in this book. You don't know what reality is. We could be in a simulation for all we know. And I think this put in a very good, interesting perspective about Hollywood itself. Of, do they even know where they are anymore? It's
Right.
like,
Well, and if that's the point, then he
you
succeeded
nailed it. You
100%.
nailed
So
it.
good for him.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap this up. I don't think there's anything else to wrap up.
Yeah.
This was an interesting experiment, an interesting book, and an interesting choice. Or this is the second new release from Jim Carrey that we've had since we started this podcast, since this project. So we've been
Well,
all over
I've
the
rewatched Sonic several times now. I
book.
reread this book.
Oh, good. Should we do a rewatch of Sonic at some point? I mean, you've done it, but like for me, when we
Sure.
get to when it should be released,
Yeah.
I'll look
I
into
was
that.
I am excited to see I Love You, Philip
Philip Morris.
Morris.
Philip
Because
Morris.
I didn't even like I that wasn't even on my radar as one of
Yeah.
his movies. And I guess maybe it's been kind of quieted down or whatever, but I'm excited to see that coming up.
Yeah.
And when he wrote about it, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think, he's been floating around this sort of metaphysical stuff in some of his movies and what he writes and his paintings. I think he does that
Mm-hmm.
a lot now too. I mean, maybe what we should do an episode of like, we could be art critiques and like
Yeah. Jim Carrey art rating.
critics and like look at some of his artwork and because I mean it's all tying together in that
Yeah.
respect. So
Yeah. It's his world from beginning to end, and whether we want to be a part of it or not, we're just along for
very,
the
I will
ride.
say, very like not brave of him, but brave of him in a way to like, if this is his world, to let like people in that way,
Yeah. Yeah.
then that's great. I personally still think he is playing a joke on
Mm-hmm.
everybody,
He might
but
be.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. So let's finish this up. Though that's gonna wrap it up for Jim Carrey Project. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Brian Kondrach,
And Cary Grant.
and this was a review and a discussion of Memoirs and Misinformation by Jim Carrey. You guys be good to each other. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Here it is.